Shh, don't tell anyone, but you're listening to the best kept business secret and his podcast, dedicated to helping you understand the successful business secrets that others don't want you to know, making no secret of success. Now, here's your host and quite possibly the best kept business secret anywhere, Marc Ford.
Hello again and welcome to your Best Kept Business Secret podcast with me, your host, Marc Ford, business coach, author, business media commentator, and quite possibly your best kept business secret when it comes to growing, monetizing and marketing your business. Now on today's show, we talk to Kathleen Gage from Power Up for Profits, where we talk about how being successful once just simply isn't enough. How to make yourself stand out from the crowd and why people shouldn't be afraid of pivoting in their business even at the age of 65. Yes, 65 years old. So just remember, some of the best businesses started late. Colonel Sanders and KFC, anybody? Anyway, if you like this podcast, please subscribe and keep up to date with the latest shows as they land. And if you like the stuff we're doing, drop us a review on iTunes or YouTube and we'd really appreciate it. But here's just a quick message from the show's sponsors and we will get stuck in to my interview with the amazing Kathleen Gage.
This show is sponsored by the Small Business Growth Magazine, available online and dedicated to helping businesses from startups to their first million. Download it today.
From the streets in her 20s to 35 years sober to award-winning marketing strategist running a very highly successful consulting business for 25 years and becoming an in-demand keynote speaker to going completely plant-based at the age of 64 and running a half marathon for her 65th birthday. Life is never boring for this woman. At nearly 65, let's just say she's really not your typical senior. And besides health and fitness, Kathleen Gage is into animal rescue and she has a whole lot of critters, her words not mine, who call her place home. Now, after 25 years in business, Kathleen is doing what most entrepreneurs would never dream of doing. And that is changing her business direction and market in a very big way. That she is creating a level of success that many entrepreneurs only aspire to achieve. And she's discovered a passion that has been percolating. I do love that word, percolating, under the surface for years. A whole food, plant-based lifestyle. As an author and marketing and business strategist, Kathleen has made it her mission to teach solo and small business owners how to become visible in their market through the power of clarity of their message and to package their core message into speaking engagements, books, information, products, and consulting and coaching services. And I am so looking forward to this because I am going to be learning about eating, which is one of my favorite hobbies. If you can watch the video of this, you will see it. You just have to look at the size of me. Okay, I'm a complete Luddite at this, and she is going to be absolutely dropping some knowledge bombs. Kathleen, welcome to the show. How are you?
You know, it's so good to be here, Mark. I love that introduction, and I love your enthusiasm. And like you, I love food. I love food, without a doubt.
That's good. That's good. You see, we're going to start this off on the food thing straight away. We'll get into the story in a bit, okay? The reason being is because I went to a networking event today, and we were talking about vegan burgers. Right? Here's the thing. How can you call a vegan burger a burger when it's got no meat in it? Go.
You can call it whatever you want to, but and it's interesting because Beyond Meats, which is the big meatless meat company, they just went public today. They did,
didn't they? Yeah.
Yes, and I am one of the people that I called my financial planner and I said, dude, take some money, move it over. Take it from the conservative, move it to this one. And they went public yesterday, and in one day, they more than doubled the value of their stock. You know, so how they can call it a burger, there's some controversy over that. It's just like almond milk, coconut milk, the milk and dairy farmers and the dairy manufacturers, they don't want them to use that name because it supposedly confuses the issue. But I think it just helps people to realize that they can have something that's super healthy, and if they're not into consuming animals, they can still get the flavor of it. You know, that's one thing. It's plant-based, but very high fat, I will tell you.
Which is fine, because, I mean, the keto diet is incredibly high fat. See, look, I kind of know about that sort of stuff. Okay, here's the thing. What made you go completely plant-based? Because there has to have been something that just made you go, do you know what?
I'll tell you, okay, you in the introduction, you said I've been 35 years sober. I tend to be a very black and white kind of person. It's like I have a very addictive personality, and it's either I do something all the way or I don't do it at all. And how I started doing plant-based was as you mentioned, I'm coming up on 65 years old. And I was
by the way, guys, if you get the chance to watch the video of this, go and have a look at the video, because this woman, I'm telling you now, does not look 65.
Thank you. Oh, hey, we can end right here. You just made my day. That's awesome. Thank you.
I'm telling you now, I'm now going to give you a backhanded compliment, because otherwise I'm going to say, otherwise your lighting is really good over there. But I'm telling you now, you sure as hell don't look it.
It's all the cream I use. But no, it really is. It's healthy living, quite seriously. If I hadn't stopped drinking 35 years ago, I would be one of those people you'd say, oh my God, she looks like she's 85. But the reason I started plant-based about 8 months ago was I started because of inflammation. I was feeling a lot of inflammation in my hand, and with certain foods that we put in our system, sugar, meat, dairy, all that, it causes inflammation. So I started researching it, and it seemed like it was almost too good to be true. Everything I read said if you go plant-based, you get rid of all these other products like the meat and the dairy and all that. You will get rid of inflammation. I thought, yeah, right. So I gave it 7 days, and I thought if something doesn't change in 7 days, I'm not going to continue. Well, in 2 days, the inflammation was gone, and I was like, oh my gosh. Well, in 7 days, I was feeling better than I had in quite a while, and I had been a runner for a while. I do a lot of exercise, and I was improving on my exercise. 7 more days, I committed to it. I dropped about 10 pounds. I don't know what that would be in kilos, but I dropped about 10 pounds. And after 4 months, I dropped 37 pounds. Wow. And I got to tell you, it has been a game changer. My clarity is better, my focus, my state of mind. I don't know about you, Mark, but as an entrepreneur, sometimes I have little anxiety attacks like, what happened to that client? And, or the market's changing or whatever. And so I would get anxiety, and not to the point it was disabling, but it was just uncomfortable. Since going plant-based, I don't have anxiety. It's the weirdest thing. And so it's almost kind of like a miracle drug. In the day, I used to take the little pills that would supposed to give me the miracle feeling. Well, This is better than that. This is just unbelievable. So that's how I started. But then it aligned with my compassion for animals. That's the big thing. It's like I do animal rescue. And as I went further into it, I thought, I've really been kind of like speaking out of both sides of my mouth, saying I have compassion for animals, but then eating animals. So for me, it's a personal thing to do with health, and it's to do with the animal well-being. But what's interesting, in our country, in the United States, our healthcare system is broken. It is absolutely broken. It's the biggest hindrance to our national debt. We don't take care of our people like, in countries like the UK and Canada. We just don't. And I don't want to be a victim of our healthcare system. And by choosing how I eat, that I have much more control over it.
Wow. Okay. There's so much there, because I was going to ask you sort of like, what the difference is being a business owner, because we have to, some of us work really long hours, and we have to keep going, sort of like we're getting up at 6 a.m. in the morning, we're going to bed at midnight, right, just to sort of like keep the lights on and stuff like that. And as entrepreneurs and small business owners, we do eat crap. We really do. I mean, I hold my hands up. I've been sat there eating jelly babies this afternoon. That is not healthy. I know that. Right. But it's that thing. It's that sugar rush just keeps you going, and the amount of tea, the amount of coffee and stuff like that we have. So you've answered that absolutely spot on, because it's really important we keep our energy levels up. Now, what really fascinated me here with your story is that, in the introduction, I started off with, you were on the streets in your 20s.
Yes.
And I'm just gonna come straight out and ask this: how the bloody hell did that happen?
It happened. I'll give you a straight answer on that: drugs and alcohol. I mean, there's no two ways about it. It's like at the age of 16, I was introduced to a few things: drugs, boys, and sex. I mean, you know, like a lot of people at that age. And I really hooked into the whole drug scene and got further and further into it to where I crossed that invisible line that a lot of times people don't cross. And I just have a very addictive personality to where drinking and drugging was more important to me than just about anything. And no matter how much I swore it off, no matter how much I said I was going to quit, it wasn't happening. And it got to the point that I was a blackout drinker. I was drunk more than I was sober, because from the minute I would come to, I would start drinking. And when you do that, you can't hold down a job. When you don't hold down a job, you don't pay your rent. When you don't pay your rent, you get kicked out. And so for a while I was couch surfing, and then I literally was on the streets figuring out, where am I going to sleep tonight? And I actually did, when I was 30. Now this is interesting. When I was 30, I did what a lot of people do in their teens. I actually hitchhiked from California all the way over to Israel, and I lived in a moshav for 6 months.
Right, hang on. The fact that you just said most people do this in their teens, I went from California to Israel. No, hang on.
Well, I guess not. You know, it's like I'm just...
Most people hitchhike 5 miles down the road. They don't
That's true.
From California to Israel.
Well, you know, I did take a flight from New York to London. So I think it was Gatwick Airport. I took it was the People's Express back then, and it was like $100 flight. But no, it was just one of those periods I had started getting my life together, but I just, for whatever reason, I couldn't seem to keep it together. And the only answer to me was to do a geographic, it was to run to another area. I was going to India, quite seriously. And I guess I just didn't pay attention in geography that India and Israel are not right next to each other. And I ended up on a moshav. But I was going in search of spiritual enlightenment. That's what the trip was about. And what I realized, it was in a bomb shelter that, you know, that's where they would have the parties. I was in there going, you know, wherever I go, there I am. And that was like the most profound thing that I could even think of, was that wherever you go, there you are. So you better get your crap together where you're at. It's not going to happen by leaving and going 10,000 miles.
Wow. I mean, you're absolutely right. Still, the way you just threw the California, still can't get over the California to Israel.
Oh yeah, everybody does that. You know, don't they all go 10,000 miles?
And look, this is the thing I don't understand about you Americans. I said this to Freddie Fry actually in the last podcast, is that you Americans quite happy to drive like 15, 20 hours. Here in the UK, we get really upset if we have to drive further than 2. 2 hours is enough. Sorry, there's a plane. That's why they were invented. Get on it, go somewhere. Simple as. You Americans are crazy with your cars. Really
yes, we are. Yes, we are. I agree with you on that, definitely.
So how did you start? So look, you know, you've done this, and it's hugely creditable to you that 35 years sober is a massive, massive achievement. I'm not sure whether you've been asked this or not before, but I'm just going to come straight out and say it. You said that you've got a very addictive personality a couple of times. How has that helped you, and how has that hindered you in your business? Because that's really quite interesting.
Great question, Mark. I've never been asked that, and that's a great question. I don't know. Let me look up the answer. Let's see. The answer to that is that being as addictive in my personality as I am, when I went into my business, I went all in. And I was one of those people that when I wanted to learn something, I immersed myself into it, and I would study everything I possibly could until I figured it out. And early on, I was one of the early adopters of the internet marketing game. And we're going back in the probably about the 1996, 97 is when I started doing some online campaigns, conversion funnels, before there even was such a name for those things. And very few people were doing this. And I remember I figured out how to do a campaign where I was selling a $27 product through ClickBank, and I made $15,000 back in 1996 or 97. And I'm like, oh my God. Well, talk about a drug. When you're making $15,000 in a 24-hour period, you're going, oh my God. But it's not just the 24 hours. It's what led up to it and what you had to do after. But I got the bug. It was like, this is so exciting. A lot of people didn't know what was going on. It was back in the day, there were only a few real big influencers. Corey Riddell was one of them. And he passed away at the age of 30 from a car accident, but he was like the guru. Mm-hmm. And so I think how my personality has helped me in business is I have immersed myself into it. And my whole thing now in life is balance. It's like really trying to strive for that. I don't think I'll ever get it, because the first marathon I ever did, I was 61 years old and I did a full marathon. Had never run before. And it's like, oh, I'm going to be a runner. Okay, let's do a marathon. Well, that's kind of crazy. And I gave myself 3 months to prepare. Huge mistake. You know,
wow, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was the last one in. I hold that distinction. It was like, last one in.
Congratulations. Well done, you.
Thank you. But, you know, so I think how it has helped me is that when I really grab hold of something, I'm going to grab hold of it and I'm going to learn it and I'm going to get really good at it.
Wow. Okay. So how do you think it's hindered you? Because it's, I mean, as you were talking to me, it made perfect sense that it's all like the positives, but how's it detracted from the business? How have you had to control it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because just like when you get that first high, you know, you get that the first time you do whatever you do and you get that high. Well, the first time you make $25,000 in a day, you're going, okay, I'm going to chase that. And you keep chasing it. And then you have a $50,000 day. Then you have a $100,000 day. My best day was, I did a 3-day event and we did $250,000. And it's like, wow, you know, the drug. And to the point that it was hindering other aspects of my life. That's when I started gaining weight. That's when I was chained to my desk. I wasn't doing any physical activity. My relationship was suffering. So it was like everything was about work. And so that's how it has been like a negative. And that's why the balance, because again, you can be very black and white. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs have a very addictive personality. You know, in some ways you have to. And it doesn't mean with drugs and alcohol. It just means that you have a personality that you're consumed with what you're doing. You're going to figure it out.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Really do. Tell you what, let's move it on a little bit. So now you're helping businesses sort of like get their message out there. Mm-hmm. They're really sort of like honing down their message, and I think that's mightily important. The amount of clients that I work with that really aren't sure what their message is to their customers, right, and just end up marketing to absolutely everybody, and which means they market to nobody. Give us 3 top tips. 3 top tips on how people can really start honing their message and where's best to get it out there.
Okay, that I would say, and I'll use my transition in my business right now of going into the plant-based, the green, and the sustainable industries. My message is very clear that I work with companies that are doing something good for the earth, something good for the animals, and something good for their health. And so if it's an organization that doesn't fit that criteria, then I'm not going to work with them. So part of my message is power up for profits the plant-based way. And I had somebody who goes, well, what does plant-based way mean? And I said, companies that are plant-based will get it. They know it. It's, you know, within every industry, you have jargon, you have acronyms, and the people in those industries know, and the other people, they don't need to know. So part of it is getting really clear on what your jargon is. Part of it is getting really clear on, if you didn't get paid for what you were doing, who would you want to spend your time with? Because I think that's huge. You know, some people, they can run a business just to make money. That's great. But the thrill and the excitement is not as deep as it would be if you're doing something that you feel really good about. So another part of it would be to really get clear on, what do you really enjoy doing that you feel you could make money at? And not everything is something you can make money at. I think it's important to keep that in mind, that just because you have a passion for something doesn't mean that people will pay for it. For example, somebody that they want to help women on welfare. Let's use that as an example. Well, if they're trying to directly market to women on welfare, they're not going to make money because women on welfare don't have money. Now, what they might do is go to the next step up of what are some sponsoring organizations that want to help the women on welfare. The target market would be the sponsoring organizations. That would be where their money comes from, and it has the trickle down effect to the women on welfare. So that would be another thing, is to look at, can you really make money at it? And a big thing would be, are you willing to put the time in? Because the illusion that people have is that you press a button and you make all this money. Now, I have pressed a button and I've made a lot of money. But what about all the work that went into it? And the way that people get sold a bill of goods is that they don't have to work. They can drive the fancy cars. They can live in the big houses, yada, 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 yada. Well, nothing comes without effort, nothing. And so if you want to seriously run a business, you have to treat it like a business. That would be one of the most important tips I can give you. You set it up with a business license. You get your business name. In the States, we call it a DBA, a doing business as. Get an attorney, get a tax consultant, get an accountant. You know, have a financial planner. Those are all aspects of running a successful business.
Yeah, it's really interesting with the amount of people or entrepreneurs, as they like to call them, and I've been heavily critical of the overuse of the word entrepreneur, because I actually think the bar has been set so low
right
at the moment to be called an entrepreneur, especially when you are selling somebody else's pills, potions, creams, things like that, and you start, strutting around going, I'm an entrepreneur. Well, actually, you're just a salesman. Or a salesperson. So, I get very critical, but they sold that dream. There's been a documentary over here in the UK quite recently, and for people in the UK, it's on the BBC iPlayer, where they've been talking about multi-level marketing businesses, and some people can make some great money out of them. Genuinely, they can, but only if they have a very large team underneath them who have all been sold that dream of, you drop the kids off to school, you do 20 minutes of social media, you're a millionaire, or you go on holidays and things like that. And it's wrong. And I think people forget that there is that element of hard work. There is no such thing as a silver bullet. And even if there was a silver bullet, why would you give a silver bullet to a business that's the size of a cannon? It's going to miss every single time. So you're absolutely right with the hard work aspect of it. So when it's coming to the plant-based type of stuff, how big do you think that this is going to get? I mean, seriously, it seems like, veganism, vegetarianism, especially vegetarianism back in the 80s and the 90s, was kind of like, oh, you're a bit of a weirdy beardy, sort of like, tying yourself to a lettuce and some tomatoes. And now, it feels like it's a movement. It feels like it's really gathering some pace, and it's almost like, no, this is going to be a real change or a different way of life. How big do you think this is going to be business-wise?
I think business-wise, well, from everything I've studied, in 2019, it's the fastest growing industry out there. And I think the fact that Beyond Meats went public yesterday and how quickly it's spreading like wildfire for people to invest in their company. Because if I didn't think I was going to make money from investing in that company, I wouldn't be investing in it. And I think there's a higher level of consciousness now than there was 20 or 30 years ago. And you're right. In the past, it was all the weirdos did that, the Birkenstock crowd. And now there's so many different layers to why people would choose a vegan, plant-based lifestyle. A big one for a lot of people is their health, because when you look at the obesity rate, I don't know what it is in the UK, but I do know in the United States, we're at about 35% obesity, not just overweight, but obesity. And I think 70% of the population is overweight. And when you look at what that does to your health, I mean, and we're talking real facts and figures of diabetes, heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure, it goes on, that we can actually reverse a lot of this by making better choices. So that's a big part of what the movement is about, is the whole health movement. Another big part is compassion to animals. People are realizing that factory farming is one of the cruelest things that we do to animals. I had somebody recently who said, well, if everybody goes vegan, then there's not going to be any cows or chickens. And it's like, well, there's going to be a lot fewer, but one of the only reasons they're raised is because people eat them. And so there's a level of awareness that has been brought to the experience that wasn't there 20, 30, 40 years ago. And I think anything, when a movement starts, whether it be like in the States when Rosa Parks wouldn't go to the back of the bus, and that started the whole civil rights movement, you have a pendulum swing where things are a certain way at one period of time, and the people that are the front runners of a movement are considered radical, they're considered crazy, they're the outcasts of society. Well, then the pendulum comes back, and then it's kind of middle of the road. And I think more and more every day it's becoming middle of the road, because conferences I go to now, they offer vegan choices, and it's like, oh my gosh, now there's vegan restaurants. And some people are 100% vegan, like they won't wear any clothing that has any animal products in it. They won't do any products that are animal tested. Other people, it's strictly around the food, you know. So I do see it moving more and more in the direction of it being a huge movement. Now, will 100% of the population do it? No, but not by any stretch of the imagination. And all I know is I can only be responsible for me and do what I can to raise awareness.
But it just takes that little bit of a shift for it to make a huge difference.
Yes,
absolutely. If you're saying 100% no, that's not going to happen. But just imagine if in 5 years' time, 15% of the world population is just plant-based. That would make a significant difference going forward.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting when you were talking there. We were talking about the company that sort of like doubled its sales. Do you know what the thought was that popped in my head when you said that? That is a shitload of pressure for the owners of that business, because they effectively, there's been a lot of press over here in the UK about the overvaluation of certain businesses. Right. So they pointed to things like Uber, effectively. They were going, do you know what? People are buying into this. Yes, there's potential for growth, but is there that much potential? And effectively, you've got a company there that do vegan burgers that overnight, everybody's gone, we believe in you, we want you to make us more money, and they've just doubled into. It's like, wow, how much pressure must that be?
That's a lot of pressure, and they've been around for a while. See, that's the thing. It's not like they just came from out of nowhere. They've actually been around. They've done their market research, and is it a definite winner? I don't know, but I'm willing to gamble on it. And like with Facebook, I invested in Facebook. And I remember my financial planner said, no, don't do it. And it's like, yes, I'm doing it. And I wish I would have bought more. But it was interesting because it went up past $200 a share, and then it went down to 132. And it's like, oh my gosh. But I was fortunate because I bought it when they had the IPO. So it's like, you know, during the dot-com era, there were a lot. I think that was a bigger balloon than what we're seeing now. I think people have gotten a lot more reasonable. But during the dot-com era, I know people lost a lot of money. People made fortunes, but people lost fortunes.
Absolutely. So I always like finishing off these podcasts with sort of like 2 really good business decisions that you've made, 2 really bad ones. For you, I would say the third one was obviously buying Facebook when it was cheap. So that's one of them. Well done, you. So what were your 2 best business decisions that you look back on now thinking, do you know what? I am so damn happy that I went and put myself out there and did this. What would those be?
One really good business decision was I learned how to present on the platform, because when you can present on the platform, the world is your oyster, quite seriously, because you can present to one person, you can present to 1,000 people. That's one of the best things. I hired a coach for that. The other is I hired a business coach. And I was very clear on the kind of coach that I needed. I invested a lot of money over a period of 2 years. I believe I invested about $100,000 with this person. Wow. And that $100,000 turned into a heck of a lot more. But part of the good decision was I was willing to do the work. And part of the bad decision that I see people make is they'll hire a coach and they don't do what the coach recommends. They hire the coach first. It's like hiring a physical fitness coach. You hire them and they say, okay, here's how you do a bench press. And you go, well, I want to do a bench press like this instead of like this. And it's like, no, I'm telling you. And so good decisions, speaking, learning how to speak, and continuing to speak. Another one is hiring a business coach. And I'll say a third one is writing a book. I mean, I've written several books, and books really do lend themselves to a lot of credibility.
Absolutely, they really do. Yeah. You're talking to somebody whose next book comes out end of this month, which is quite exciting. Yeah, I'm just biting my little backside off. I really am.
What's the name of your book?
Well, do you know what? It's I like looking at things in very odd, different perspectives. This next book, so actually everybody's getting exclusive here. It's quite good because I haven't really kind of put it out in the public domain yet. I did, there's a certain sci-fi show over here in the UK called Doctor Who. And I have been a massive fan of Doctor Who since I was a kid. But that is a franchise that has been going 55 years and has gone through very, very highs and very, very lows. And over in America now, it's doing incredibly well. We've just got our first female doctor after 55 years. I'm glad that we eventually caught up. Well done. But I went and did a presentation. It was 20 minutes. It was after the new series had started airing here in the UK. And I just did this presentation of business lessons that you can learn from the Doctor Who franchise. That's all it was. And somebody came up to me and he went, that was brilliant. He said, I don't even like Doctor Who. Well, that's brilliant. He said, that should be a podcast series. I went, oh, yeah, okay, not a problem. And as I started writing the first script for the first Doctor, Gemma, my fiance, came in and she went, that's the first chapter of your next book.
Nice.
So, there you go. So the book that will be coming out at the end of this month is Business Lessons from Doctor Who. Which is mental. If nothing else, nerdy people who like Doctor Who will buy it. So that's cool. So that means I'll be a business coach to nerdy people. Get in. I'm happy.
Got it. Yeah. No, that's awesome. And how wonderful that you have the support of your fiance too, because that's something that I see happen in business where somebody's doing this thing by themselves and they don't get support. And I'm not talking financial support. I'm just talking the emotional support of what it takes to help us get through those times where business might shut down for a while. You know, it's like it slows down. And because it's not all expansion, there's times that we contract in business. And like you said, Doctor Who, 55 years, ups and downs, you know. And I think that's where a lot of people lose sight of what really running a business is about. You have to know how to manage your money. You have to know how to manage your state through those times where you were riding high and then all of a sudden it's like, well, where did the high go? You know?
Yeah. Very much so. Nice. I'm very pro telling people that being self-employed or being an entrepreneur is one of the most amazing things that you'll ever do. Problem is, the highs are very, very high and the lows are very, very lonely, which is quite scary, really.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's incredibly scary. So, quickly, give me your 2 worst bits of advice in business that you've ever received.
The 2 worst bits of advice, I would say early on, not hiring a coach, thinking I could figure it out all by myself. So trying to, figure everything out on my own. That was one. And not raising my bar quick enough. It really ties into the investments that I was or was not willing to make. Other than, and I would say maybe not playing big enough at times where I got frightened, it was like things were happening so quickly. It's like, and slowing myself down, so yeah. I think most people can relate to something like that.
Very much so. Kathleen, I've absolutely loved talking to you. Where can people come and find you? Where can they find more out about you? Where can they come and get your books? Where can they hear you speak? Tell us, this is your opportunity to big yourself up. Go for it.
Right. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, where they can find me? They can go to Amazon and they can find my books there. Kathleen Gage. They can go to Power Up for Profits. That's plural. PowerUpForProfits.com. And there's links to my plant-based eating for health. There's links to all of my business stuff. As far as where they can hear me speaking, I speak at conferences. I'm always open for a conversation. If you have a conference coming up and you want me to come in and keynote or do breakout sessions, give me a holler. I'd love to talk with you.
Brilliant. Kathleen, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Mark. You have a delightful evening.
Wow, what a woman. There was just so much stuff to pick apart there. Now, if you want to find out more about Kathleen and the work that she does, take a look at the show notes and follow the links from there. And if you want a free download that will guarantee to help you grow your business, then go over to my website, which is www.marcford.uk, and drop me your email to get instant access. And if you'd like to be part of our exclusive online mastermind business network, then go to the website and click the online community tab, where you will find hundreds, and I mean hundreds of hours of content, videos and audio that have been harvested and made to help you grow, monetize and market your business, making no secrets of any business success. Well, that's it for this episode. So guys, go out, be brilliant, and I will see you very soon.
This show is sponsored by the Small Business Growth Magazine, available online and dedicated to helping businesses from startups to their first million. Download it today.